I've never really been into this show much. I've always preferred Simpsons or South Park over Family Guy. But I don't think it's terrible or unpleasant. Well, the first few seasons anyway. Yeah, this show has suffered seasonal rot, and it's suffered horribly. So many bad episodes. But one of the worst parts of the show is Brian Griffin. He is one of the most horrible characters in the show, and if you want to see one of his worst episodes yet, watch Brian's Bad Father. He is awful in this episode. So this is the episode that I'm going to be reviewing today. It starts with Peter and his friends going hunting when Peter shoots Quagmire in the arm intentionally.
Hey, Peter, you got your safety on, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, because your gun is pointing right at me.
Wait, want me to pull the trigger and prove it to you?
No, I just want to make sure your safety's on.
Yeah, see, Quagmire? Safety's on. Now, this is a gun without a safety.
Oh!
Quite the difference, huh?
Damn it, Peter, you son of a bitch! You shot me!
Why he does it, I honestly have no idea. So the side plot is Peter and Quagmire becoming enemies, and the episode expects you to sympathise with Peter, even though he brought all of this onto himself, so he doesn't get my sympathy. I would talk about this plot more, but I want to focus on the main plot of the episode. But I will say this, that suicide joke is one of the worst jokes I've ever heard in any show, ever.
Hey, Lois, if I was going to kill myself, do I slit my wrists this way or this way?
Sideways for attention, long way for results.
Meg is right.
Okay, I'll be in the garage.
Peter, put that knife down.
Lois, I don't have any friends, so I'm going to kill myself and get a full page in the year.
It's so tasteless that it becomes less funny and more offensive. But enough about that. When we first see Brian in this episode, he's trying to be a good writer and failing horribly.
Some magic typewriter that writes for him. But then it turns out the typewriter is racist? Totally makes sense.
Brian, you're a terrible writer. Anyway, he gets a call from his son Dylan, and Brian, being the extremely bad person that he is, refuses to answer him for a reason that is never explained throughout this episode.
Oh, crap. It's Dylan.
Dylan? Your son? Haven't heard you mention him in ages.
Yeah, I decided to step away from the whole situation.
Stewie forces him to answer, and Dylan says he'd like to meet up with his father soon. Brian agrees to meet up, but doesn't. Why, I have no idea. However, after flaking out of the meeting, Brian realizes that Dylan's part of a Disney sitcom. So Brian goes to meet with Dylan in a diner and proceeds to talk Dylan into giving him a writing job on the sitcom.
And you know what's weird? You're on a show, I'm a writer. It's almost like the universe is trying to, I don't know, make us work together or something. I don't know.
You want a job on my show?
Hey, don't put the universe's words in my mouth, okay?
I don't know, Dad.
Hey guys, just between us, with Brian Griffin being a part of the show, it's probably going to be worse than Fred the Show. Actually, no. No show, not even Modern Family Guy, is worse than that crappy excuse for a show. Anyway, back to the episode. When Brian's talking with the writing team, he proceeds to be an arrogant asshole to the other writers.
Newest staff writer, Brian Griffin.
Hi, guys. Yes, I am that Brian Griffin. You probably have my novel, but just so you know, in here, I'm just one of the guys, all right?
You know, art is scary. This is writing, man. The viewer wants to be raped.
Are you saying my 9-year-old daughter wants to be raped?
Now you're asking the right questions. Now you're being creative, thinking outside the box. Take what you think you know.
Brian is without a doubt worse than Gumball in The Hero. Because unlike Modern Family Guy, I actually find The Amazing World of Gumball a good show. And Gumball was only an asshole in about 4 or 5 episodes of a show that so far contains 196 episodes. But with Brian, he's been an asshole ever since 2008 or 2009. Anyway, Brian screws up the show big time and gets himself fired.
My dad wrote that one for me.
Again with this? Yesterday you had Dakota give herself an abdomen punch abortion during her volleyball tournament. Brian, you're fired.
Wait, what?
Sorry, Brian, but you're done.
He goes to complain to Dylan, and then the part we've all been waiting for finally happens. Dylan calls Brian out on his crap.
We all getting those backpacks with the name of the show on them?
You know what, Dad? I'm starting to think that you've just been using me to advance your career. God, you're a terrible father. I never want to see you again.
Oh, my God, he's right. I am a terrible father.
We get another joke about Brian being an asshole that goes absolutely nowhere, and the episode then tries to make you sympathize with him and tries to make Dylan look like the bad guy. But in reality, Dylan had every right to yell at Brian because Brian's an asshole, and it's satisfying to see him forlorn. Plus, Brian's an alcoholic, so whether he's upset or not, he'd still be drinking anyway.
I can't believe I was so selfish. It's like Dylan just...
Anyway, he decides to apologize to Dylan. When he gets to the studio, a guard tells him Dylan doesn't want to see him anymore.
We're not allowed to let you in.
Well, you know what? I'm sorry, too.
For what?
For this!
I have to say, seeing that guard attacking Brian is one of the most satisfying things in this episode.
Stewie, it's no use. They're never gonna let us in.
So Stewie gets into the studio by dressing as Zack Sawyer, and he says something to Dylan that I cannot avoid talking about.
How do I know he won't just hurt me again?
You don't. You never know that. But isn't taking a risk better than not having a dad?
No. No. Dylan's life would be worse if Brian was his father. Listen, Stewie, you're a great character. In fact, you're one of the only likable characters left on this show. But what you've said is one of the most stupidest and retarded things that I've ever heard. Dylan doesn't deserve Brian. Dylan's a good person, Brian's a bad person. Anyway, Dylan goes to a park where Brian is. And you know, when I first saw this episode, I hadn't seen any of Brian's other horrible episodes like Herping a Love Sore. So I was actually starting to feel kind of sorry for him. But then he says this.
Right. Look, Dylan, I'm really sorry I hurt you. I've been a really bad father, like Ernest Hemingway or some other great writer.
That display of arrogance made me lose my sympathy for that mutt. So then Brian apologizes, and then Dylan isn't seen in any single episode of the show ever. I said earlier that this is one of Brian Griffin's worst moments, but it's not his worst episode, believe it or not. Many people consider this Brian's worst episode, yet I don't. So what episode could be worse than Brian being a selfish and arrogant father? Well, you'll soon see.
I am a terrible father.
Father, I never want to see you again.
Oh, my God, he's right. I am a terrible father.